will run your ass into the ground.
Doing, Kanan?
Oh.
But I can tell it ain't good.
Turn around.
You brought all this shit into his life. The feds, they got eyes on you, they got eyes on Kanan.
Now, last week I said the story of raising Kanan does seem to be taking a shift. The death of Detective Beck and Sal Baselli meant that a couple of old threats have been taken care of. But as always in a game which revolves around power, control, and survival, there are always going to be new threats that do emerge. Whether you're talking about Ronnie who's just been released from prison, rival drug gangs, or law enforcement, each and every single one of these characters need to sleep with one eye open and be constantly looking over their shoulder, even if Rock does believe she's out the game, which we all know is only temporary. So we're going to continue to see the threat of law enforcement in episode 4. Kanan will have handcuffs slapped on his wrist and be taken into the precinct, and this time he may need an assist from his uncle Lou. Ronnie seems to be losing patience and making an enemy of the returning Dean, which I'm not so sure that's such a good idea. So there is a lot to unpack for the preview of episode 4, and as usual, I will be bringing in a couple of scenes that do match episode 4 from the official trailer and season trailer for all things Raising Kanan season 3 episode 4. Now the title of episode 4 is In Sheep's Clothing, and the synopsis reads, new business ventures take shape for the Thomas family, but the outlook does look bleaker for the Mathis brothers as Ronnie's patience runs out. Meanwhile, Rock makes a risky move for Kanan's disobedience. Now first things first, what do they mean by in sheep's clothing? The term actually comes from a wolf in sheep's clothing, meaning someone can look harmless, but they're the complete opposite, just like Sam warned Beck in season 2.
And I'm gonna tell you like this, you don't want that little in the street, cause he about to go from being a pup to a wolf real fucking quick. That's my word.
You recognize who Kanan Stark was about to become, because he's probably been on the streets long enough to see different leaders of operations, and kids grow up on the streets who do turn to the game and so on. But the term also extends to Raquel, who at this moment in time might not seem dangerous to the naked eye. She's got law enforcement watching every one of her moves, and at this moment in time, she just looks like a businesswoman who's venturing into property and buying businesses. Sounds like someone we know from Power. But what we also know from Power is, Tom Ford suits and owning nightclubs couldn't change who Ghost was, and the same goes for the entire Thomas family, not just for Kanan and Rock. Now in episode 4, we're also going to see the return of a familiar face, Uzama Dean Tippett. So just as a quick recap, he was Rock and Unique's original connect back in season 1, but he stopped doing business with both because of the noise that they were creating in Queens. Dean is that kind of guy who likes to stay under the radar because he's thinking about the long money, but Kanan also described him as silent but violent, a side that we haven't seen yet, but we will get to that. When Unique got out of jail in season 2, he went over to see Dean, but he rejected Unique's business proposal because shit was just way too hot around him in the streets, and so we saw Unique working with Sal while Rock went over to work with Joaquin. Now having said that, we do have to remember, we were introduced to Unique working with Dean, but Ronnie was the one who was in charge before him, so it's not beyond reasonable doubt to think that Ronnie and Dean do know each other and did business before he went inside. Dean could very well have been Ronnie's old connect, but I guess we're going to find out when they come face to face. So we've got Ronnie coming to meet Dean, maybe to try and get his hustle back up and running, because he believes every moment they're not pushing, they're falling. He also believes that Rock is only getting stronger. Now, I don't think Dean will be doing business with Ronnie, especially as we hear him saying he will run Ronnie's ass into the fucking ground, with Ronnie grabbing Dean, which I don't think is such a good idea. We all know Ronnie doesn't take too kindly to disrespect or people talking shit to him, just as the bouncer that he dealt with in episode 2. But we do have to remember, the older Kanan's narration told us in season 1, Dean is silent but violent, a side that we haven't seen to him yet, but I think we're about to. So this Dean and Ronnie situation is definitely going to spice things up in Raising Kanan. Now we've also got Unique and Ronnie looking as if they're contemplating their next move, and even though I don't think they're on the same page when it comes to Rock or their operation, I do think when it comes to beef, it definitely will be game on. So this is something Grantham Coleman teased before season 3. He said that he's excited to show the brothers who are definitely on the same side. But problems can come up when you involve business with family, and especially when you deal with someone who is built like Ronnie is, which is just someone who's not willing to listen to anybody other than what he thinks. So that's definitely Ronnie to a T. He definitely isn't someone who listens to others. But over the course of the season, even though we're no doubt going to see him and Unique on different pages with some aspects like Rock, I do feel like we will see them on the same side for other things. So let's see what the brothers are cooking up. Now with Kanan, we all know he's getting deeper into the game episode by episode, more so in season 3 now that he's clearly drawn a line between him and Rock. But I did warn last week he's still in a phase where he's constantly learning and he will come across some major hurdles. So we see him being stopped at school. He's going to be searched and then he's going to have the handcuffs slapped on his wrist. But is Kanan stupid enough to carry product on him at school? Maybe, who knows. There's a reason why he took a liking to Tariq St. Patrick back in Power, because he saw a lot of similarities. So let's not forget what happened with Tariq back in Choate. He was kicked out of Choate for dealing, albeit Effie did snitch. So could we see something similar with Kanan? Could we see him being expelled from school, which is why Rock makes a risky move for Kanan's disobedience? It definitely is possible, because we are going to see Rock in a meeting with Kanan and probably his principal. Now, he's not just going to run into trouble himself. One of his careers will be caught by the police. They don't show this specifically in the trailer for episode 4, but in the season trailer they do show him skidding and falling, so no doubt, he will get pulled in, and now here's where Kanan has an issue. All it takes for him is to drop Kanan's name. He jumps onto the top of the radar for law enforcement because of who his mom is, who is also being watched by the feds, and then everything comes crashing down, which is exactly what Howard warned Rock of. So this will be the first bump in the road for Kanan's operation. He'll find out that sometimes you do need a friend in the police department. Sometimes you have to pay them off to look the other way, just like Ghost did in Power. But I think the true cost of the game will be when he starts to lose more loved ones, which he already has in D-Wiz, but let's see the turn in him when and if he starts to lose family members or Famous. Now, back in season 1 when Kanan was picked up or Famous was taken in, he did get an assist from Symphony or Detective Howard, but this time around it might be Lou who he calls. We all know they're on the same page when it comes to Rock, and with Lou being the only one who's kinda been honest with him, it does seem like he'll get the call. Now with Lou himself, he's facing his own battles at this moment in time. We all know he's been trying to get out of this life himself. He's got issues with alcohol, which didn't help his situation with Jukebox, but he is going to give some words of warning to Kanan. Whatever he's into, he can tell it ain't good, and he knows the path that he's going down. It's not going to end well, and someone will end up having to pay for one of his mistakes. So just like Howard does, Lou probably points the finger towards Rock.
You brought all this shit into his life.
Detective Howard, you got a minute?
In the feds, they got eyes on you, they got eyes on Kanan.
So we've got Howard telling Rock she brought all this shit into his life, which is definitely true.
You kept me right here next to you, cause this is all we got. I'm here because you wanted me here.
Not only did she keep him close, she put a gun in his hand, taught him how to cook, taught him how to lie, manipulate, and the list can go on. Although let's be fair and take a look at the other perspective. He did have a chance to go to another school and live a different life. So there are two ways you can take a look at this. But I think many will probably agree when I say the majority of the problems do stem from one person, and that one person is Raquel Thomas. Now Howard will also warn Rock that the feds are watching her. We've got some undercover cops taking some pictures just like they were doing at the end of episode 2. However, at this moment in time, she just looks like a regular civilian, a businesswoman. She's gonna make her moves by buying some property and a salon, but we all know it's just a waiting game until she's being pulled back into the life. What pulls her back in could be a combination of things, Kanan getting himself into trouble, Unique, or Ronnie, who knows. But as we all know from the history of the Power universe, there will always be something that pulls you back in. Now on Howard at the precinct, we've got Agent Tanner saying he needs help from Howard, and so matching this up to a few scenes from the season trailer, we will see him getting involved in the task force, which is where I think he wants to be, but also where he needs to be. He needs eyes and ears on what they're investigating, who they're investigating, and maybe even have an influence on how they run their investigation. Whether they bring him on board, let's wait and see. But I have been thinking in regards to Detective Howard's character, and I really wouldn't be surprised if he did work his way onto the task force and maybe even later working his way up to taking the captain's place. We're all wondering what kind of pushed Duke into becoming a cop, and there have been a few hints here and there, but we haven't seen anything substantial, which of course isn't a problem, because we do have to be patient for them to tell the story. But if Howard does become the top dog at the precinct, maybe later on in the series we do see him influencing Duke. So that's a breakdown of what we can expect in episode 4, an episode which seems like it is going to get the ball rolling in terms of Ronnie making his moves, Kanan getting deeper in the game, and Rock being watched closely by the feds, where every single one of them will have to toe the fine line, keep one eye open, and look over their shoulder. So drop all your thoughts and predictions down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.